Why is this a timely conversation?
If I'm asked to show an ROI report, I really can't do it.
Athlete versus influencer.
Like, if your goal is to be a world champion, you cannot do these things.
I feel like I need to quantify it in some way.
But there's actually not a single can of Red Bull tied to an immediate outcome from Red Bull Stratos.
The future, we're really not sure.
Welcome to Perspectives, a conversation hosted by Free Hub Magazine and Backcountry Marketing Podcast. My name is Cole, and today we're sitting down with Jill Kittner, Joe Lawwell, Aaron Lutzy, and Brendan Carberry to discuss the role of the athlete in 2025 when it comes to brand and marketing and ROI. Thanks for being here. My name is Cole. I'm joined by these fine folks up here today, and we're going to be having an awesome conversation about marketing, athletes, content creators, and kind of the equation of all of those as they're brought together in this digital world of marketing. So this panel discussion is called Perspectives, and each of these folks have some awesome perspectives about this topic. I'd love if each of you could just give a quick introduction, 15 seconds of who you are, your role. Joe, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. My name's Joe Lawwell, and pretty much started off as a pro downhill racer back in the day and migrated to the motorcycle industry and got sucked back into the bike industry. And now I've been at Shimano for the last 14 years, and a few different hats, but mostly athlete sponsorships and event activation and planning.
Awesome. Jill?
My name's Jill Kittner. I'm a professional athlete / artist, I guess. I've been racing professionally since I was 14. I switched to 6 different disciplines. I've won an Olympic medal in BMX. I've won 3 world titles in 4-cross. I've won enduro world stage things and downhill World Cup podiums. So I've ridden every discipline, and now I'm a coach for the cross country USA national team.
My name is Aaron Lutzy. I've worked at Red Bull for 12 years as a Red Bull athlete manager. Before that was a mountain biker, and then returned back to mountain biking using basically a lot of the best practices that I saw the athletes I was working with using, started to incorporate it back in as sort of a guide, an instructor, I don't know if I'd use the word coach necessarily, but trying to share a lot of the information that we've built up both on the bike and off the bike with everybody.
My name is Brendan Carberry, and I tell people now that I'm a YouTuber, but I used to be an engineer, and now I make videos about product design and engineering in the outdoor industry, mostly kind of silly, fun, conceptual products or futuristic stuff.
So I think it's helpful before we start trying to unpack ROI around brands and athletes and content creators, first to understand what is the athlete partnership program typically look like. Jill, I'd love if you could share, over your years of writing, how has partnerships evolved from when you first started to now, today?
Yeah, it's definitely evolved along with the landscape of how technology is. But in the beginning, it was very one-dimensional. It was results-based. Like you would be strictly an athlete. You would go. The teams would have control of pretty much everything: your schedule, your life, how you express yourself, and then over time, you could kind of start sharing more of that, and your personalities could come to life, and you could individualize. So, it's just social media opened up a lot of opportunities and a lot of ways to collaborate and get kind of your perspective out there in a new way. So,
why is this a timely conversation? Why is this something even worth talking about today?
I think everything has sort of gotten to a point where it's established from both the creator side and the athletes. And now it's not really a question of if or when. It's sort of now part of the discussion. And I think what's really interesting, too, is that more and more people are starting to figure it out. There are tools, there's data that we are used to working with, and we can be a little bit more precise about it. And I think also, on top of that, these best practices are starting to be shared out both on the brand side and the athlete side. And I think these conversations are really important so that everyone understands how best to make use of those tools and that data and how to take it to that next step.
And Joe, could you fill us in a little bit on how an athlete would typically become a partner with Shimano, again, for some context and background?
Well, Jill brings up a good point of how different it was, and it really was results-based. And when I came on board, that's kind of the mentality. It was Shimano's a World Cup focus. We want the number one racers in the world. But at the time, enduro was coming on, and enduro was sort of the everyman sport, and it also highlights these trail bikes that were getting developed. And as I was experiencing what's going on with enduro, the internet was starting to, social media was starting to come up, and I realized that it's really not, the racers are really not even our customers. The people riding those trail bikes and riding the enduro bikes, racing enduro, those are the people that are really, driving what's cool and what we're riding on a daily basis. So as I picked up some enduro racers, I started focusing on a lot more ambassadors. And I mean, Jill is still a racer, but she's also falls into the ambassador role. And so it's kind of a nod to, you can't just be an athlete unless you're winning all the time. You need to have other things to you. People need, like, your personality. People need to get to know you, and you need to kind of make an impact. You need to make a difference. And then those ambassadors are, whether you got the pro chops or not, it actually doesn't matter too much to me. You can just be a straight ambassador and never raced a single race, and you actually can bring a lot of value to the brand.
Why did athlete partnerships start in the first place? What was their original intention?
Well, pretty much, engineers are engineers, and they make bike parts. They don't race bike parts. They need to prove those bike parts, and so really they need somebody who can go out there and put the equipment through the paces and try and win races. And really for Shimano especially, they learn so much from the racers. The amount, the level that those guys are riding, and the women, they literally just destroy things that other people could ride for years. And so they learn so much, and that's really one of the most important things is just the feedback that we get from the racing.
Is that what it's like today? Is that the intention?
It's only a small piece of the puzzle. We're not going to go away from that. It's still very, very important. We are results based when it comes to the World Cups, but that's just one small piece of the puzzle.
Aaron, I'm curious, with your role with Red Bull, when you guys would talk about ROI of athlete partnerships, how would you begin to try and gauge that and measure that?
Honestly, we didn't. There was no ROI for the athlete, and we didn't really care. I think the athlete partnerships were sort of an expression of the brand, but it was never, I mean, you look at probably the most famous Red Bull athlete project of all time is Red Bull Stratos. We sent a guy to space and he jumped, we spent a lot of money to do that, but there's actually not a single can of Red Bull tied to an immediate outcome from Red Bull Stratos. Did people go out and buy Red Bull? Were they inspired? Did they think about Red Bull? Was it top of mind the next time they were in a convenience store? Yeah, sure, probably. But there's actually no data whatsoever to this day, as far as I'm aware, at Red Bull, that the biggest athlete project that they undertook had any, direct impact. Probably, but there's nothing to actually measure it.
Is that a result of the inability to track, or that there was no effort put in to try and track it?
I think it's one of those things where I don't think anybody would disagree that it wasn't the right thing to do. Absolutely, it's the right thing to support athletes, to create this aspirational moment, this inspirational moment, to do something that really as far as giving wings to people and ideas, literally letting somebody jump out of space feels pretty in line with that. And so I think the way that resonated along with the brand story that was it right there. That was what was worth it. And I think, that's probably the closest you could really get. I don't necessarily think athletes get signed to just, repeat the brand stuff all the time. It's really to express the brand in a creative way. And I think that's probably one of the best examples I've seen to date.
So this is a group question. There's been a lot of outdoor brands, or not a lot, there's been a couple outdoor brands over the years that have cut their athlete teams in favor of more general ambassador programs. I'm curious, Joe, if we could start, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts. There's something really, no one would deny that authenticity is a key ingredient for the bike industry. And obviously athletes provide that authenticity in one of those ways, but you can't really track it, or it's hard to track. Can you see ROI from authenticity? I'd love to hear from each of you on this question.
Well, I'm going to echo what Aaron said. It's the ROI is really hard to know what it is. So there's a lot of hope. We hope that what we did was cool, just like sending someone to jump out, space. We hope that was cool and it was well received. So the best that we can do is just align with people that we feel like are making impacts, and people that we like, people that we admire. And of course, not just every athlete just because they're good doesn't mean they're a right fit for us. So it's not just a matter of going out and getting someone who just won a race or did something cool. They need to fit our brand imaging and support our brand and be the right kind of ambassador. So, in all the things that we do, even today, if I'm asked to like show an ROI report, I really can't do it. It's a lot of feel. Do we feel like we're doing the right thing? And sometimes that's what we do. We just do what we think's the right thing. But I can't really prove that it's actually effective.
Yeah, I think, marketing people sometimes have their ideas and athletes have their ideas too. And you kind of got to stay true to what, I don't know, it's just like where you're willing to draw the line in the sand. Like some things, yeah, you can, do and make other people happy, but sometimes you have to like kind of maneuver a little bit to make it your own and keep to your authentic self and not feel like you're a sellout or trying to just sell these things in an ingenuine way. That's like the worst. I don't want to be an athlete like giving my expertise and devaluing what that means, or giving like saying something's good when it's I just have to. So I always try and do what I'm supposed to, but in my own way. I don't know, or find creative ways. There's always like, it's like end result is what matters kind of in a way, same as like start finish. I guess I'm an athlete mindset, but yeah, it's like, is it cool? Does it make sense for me? Do I believe in this? And yeah, there's ways, so that you just have to pick your partners that like they all are looking for the essence of what they're trying to do, right? Like, so you just,
Let's do it.
I think the main thing is to align with brands that have the same values as you and like care and do a good job and have people that and then the value's there in its own way, regardless of what other people think. It's always there.
I think one of the things Jill was talking about too, specifically to the value point of everything, it's this idea of your value proposition as an athlete. And I think one of the things that we maybe collectively haven't really settled on is this idea of athlete versus influencer. And the way I think of it more is on like this spectrum, right? And each person that rides a bike in this case has their own unique value proposition. And like Jill was saying about finding the right partners, my value proposition of being somebody who's trying to give, beginner and intermediate mountain bikers confidence and control on two wheels is going to be different than somebody that's, ripping downhill and racing and doing stuff at the highest level in that way. And so I think it really does come down to, wherever you land on that spectrum, how your value ties into the brands that you're working with. And so from a brand perspective, if you were going to have an athlete roster, you probably would want to kind of pick from along the spectrum to sort of fulfill the different things that you need, because there is no silver bullet. There is no perfect singular athlete. Pick a brand that has one athlete on the roster. I can't think of any. There's always a group of people that represent it so that they can make sure that they're kind of representing all the different values that that brand stands for.
Yeah, I find when working with brands, I don't work with anyone where I feel that I can't say I want full creative freedom and to make my content what I know matches for my audience. Because if they're trying to get me to make content where it's out of my area of expertise, it's just not like they're just not getting bang for their buck. Because brands are paying me for my my connection, my knowledge with my audience and that specific niche. So it would be inauthentic to work outside of that. But I also I like to quantify things. So I always say like, I try to guarantee like a monetary rate per 1,000 views. And then that gives us a little bit of like a starting point to go on about whether a project was successful or we should revise and try it again or not work together in the future.
Can you elaborate on that? What sort of metrics are you putting to that?
Yeah, so I usually say a maximum of around $10 CPM, so cost per mil, so cost per 1,000 views. So if someone's going to pay me $2,000 for a project, I want to make sure it gets at least 200,000 views. And if it does, that means it's connecting with the audience and the brand is getting value for their investment. And if it doesn't, like maybe it's not a good fit, me and the brand, or maybe it's just like not the right project, or I was feeling off when I made it, but yeah.
And what's been the response for brands when you're working with them in that way and it's reaching a good CPM?
It's a good way to quantify it. I don't think a lot of creators necessarily approach with kind of like a guaranteed minimum, And I think in order to, validate what I do for a living, I feel like I need to quantify it in some way. And it's a good way to have, repeat business. Ultimately, I want to bring people on as like recurring characters on my channel. So I want brands to be like a recurring character on my channel. That's the best for building brand awareness and trust with the audience. And so I don't like to do just one project together and then never work together again. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about content creators and athletes, and sometimes maybe the perceived tension between those two. I guess my first question, Brendan, as your experience as a content creator, have you experienced tension? And if so, could you speculate as to why? Is it a funding thing? Any ideas?
Yeah, so I feel like sometimes I get a little bit of shade for being a creator in the space as an engineer or as a goofy inventor of like goofy products rather than an athlete. I think it helps. Like I would feel very self-conscious if I was a terrible bike rider, but I do try to watch Aaron's videos and get better at riding my bike.
I saw this guy ride yesterday. He rips.
But also, my personal goal with each video is to reach beyond the industry. So I don't want it to feel like it's a zero-sum game with athletes and creators competing for the same funding. A good example of that is I work with a 3D printer company called Bamboo Labs, and since we started working together last year, they've been really excited now about doing more like cycling-related projects and bringing more money into the industry. So I feel like that's sort of my role, since I do have that reach outside of the industry to bring more eyeballs and more money into the marketing there.
Joe, could you speak to this tension? Do you see that? Is it real?
I do think some of the hardcore racers they could perceive that as a thing, but in our case, we actually separate our budgets. We have ambassador budgets, we have racer budgets, and then we have content creator budgets. So whether the athletes know it or not, they're not competing with those other segments because we see the value in all these different segments. And and for a brand like Shimano, we can't just sponsor cross country riders. We can't just downhill riders. There's enduro, there's gravel, there's road. I mean, we have to spread our wings really far because we don't want to dismiss any segment because every segment has its own value and its own intrigue to it. So I don't know what I can do from my side, but I would at least this is an opportunity to say like you guys are not competing against each other. You guys have your own thing, and I'm not saying stay in your lane. Athletes can be content creators as well, but we for sure we view it as separate investments.
So you've got athletes, ambassadors, and content creators. What's the difference between the three, and what are you looking for each of them?
It's very individualized. It totally depends. There is no one bullet that covers it all. So it's very individual. It's important that we get to know who the athletes are. The authenticity thing is very important from my point of view. Street cred to me is kind of everything. I don't want to just do something because, it might, somebody got a bunch of views. I think I mentioned that earlier. It's got to be the right fit. So really, I don't know how to really say how it's different because it's just a case by case basis. You gotta bring something to the table, and people bring in all sorts of different values. And there's some individuals like Jill, she checks a lot of boxes. She can be an ambassador, she can be an instructor, she can she brings all sorts of value. She can do content, and if she decides to race, she'll probably win. So she's kind of our dream athlete. She led rides for us all weekend, so she also leads rides and she can talk to people, and that's another thing that's really important that all racers should know, that if you want to have something beyond racing, you need to be able to talk to people. You need to be able to talk about the product. And Talis Turk, I'll just throw his name out there. He's joined us. He's young, 22 or something, but he was in Rampage, and he's very different from a guy that we would have to lead a ride, but the kid was super personable and was having fun, and didn't hesitate to show off, and that's fun. We want to have fun. We're riding bikes, and I want athletes that are fun and get people motivated and stoked. Because at the end of the day, we're only successful if people are stoked and want to ride bikes, and hopefully they want to ride our products because we have an authentic face. We're not smoke and mirrors. We definitely we carefully choose who we have represent our brand.
Jill, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I think they're both kind of like different lanes for sure. Like they're saying, being a content creator seems like a different kind of grind. Like you're up there editing and you got to go out. Like it's hard work. And like as an athlete, it's like I need to train, I need to be ready, I need to make sure my sponsors are happy. There's just like it's different and they're both hard. And I did a collab with April Zastro about like how to clip in. It was like awesome because I have this expertise, but I don't want to spend this like I need someone to help me make the content to share that, and it's hard on me to go out there and have to do photo shoots and videos and not be doing. So I mean, obviously I'm changing, like not racing as much because I don't have to, but it was really nice to kind of collaborate with a creator and make something together. And I wish that was more of a pairing kind of thing. It doesn't have to be against, but when you do go watch YouTube, you want it to be like somebody who knows what they're talking about. You don't want to be like, oh, this person doesn't know or can't ride. And for me, I see all the details of what they're doing and like the riding. And so I don't think it's great to have someone who's, unless I am a beginner, and in that case, or like I'm in a different level or in a different lane, I think that's great because, what a pro does is totally different from what a beginner does. And it's sometimes hard to relate. So I think just having the right channel and the right path, like people will resonate with whatever you're doing if you put it out there. It's just from a pro perspective, I want someone who's really knowledgeable and not wasting my time on incorrect information. Does that make sense?
This is a group question for anyone who wants to jump in and answer this. What's something that content creators get right that athletes sometimes misunderstand or miss?
I think the story, which is funny because I feel like athletes have the best stories. There is this like moment of how the race went, and if it went great, that's an amazing piece of content. If it went horribly wrong, that's also an amazing piece of content. And so athletes that are, working on the highest level have, and really anybody who's involved at any level, you don't have to be an elite athlete to do this. You still have a story to tell. And I think a lot of people will relate to those stories, and I think a lot of athletes miss out on that stuff, being super relatable and sharing your ups and downs. I think a lot of athletes only want to show a lot of times like the wins, and unfortunately, like that's cool, but it's really hard to have that all the time. And I think you build trust, you build authenticity when you show that other side, you show the struggle, and that's the time when you don't want to be filming yourself most of the time, and you have to basically agree to be sort of vulnerable in that situation, I guess, if you're gonna. But I do think there's a huge opportunity that I think creators are always kind of looking for what is the audience looking for, what do they want to see, and I think all of this stuff, whether it comes from brand, athlete, creator, whatever you want, it really comes down to like, what does everybody want to see? What are they looking for? What's going to help them? What's going to be valuable to them? What's going to be interesting to them? Can we introduce something that they don't know? One of the hardest things about, I think, what I do, I'm teaching bike skills on YouTube, is that I can't tell you what I'm going to teach you. I have to basically pull you in to entice you with, how this might affect your riding. I can't say I'm going to teach you how pedal pressure does this. I have to say, like, here's how to stop walking trails. And so it's like, how do you tell these stories that the audience cares about instead of putting your stuff out as well?
Yeah, I think athletes are inherently programmed to show up to work and want to show audience, spectators, and sponsors as close to perfection as possible. And that's almost exactly the opposite of what you need to be a good creator. People want the nuts and bolts, and they want to see the vulnerabilities, and they want to see the imperfect side. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll add from the Shimano side is you don't have to win every race to keep our sponsorship. I mean, I won't name names, but we've had a few athletes that had some, went through some mental tough times, and they shared their stories and put it out there, and I'd get email messages or even calls like, hey, I got to take some time off. I need to collect myself. And I'm like, we're 100% behind you. We believed in you. We still believe in you. And, hats off to you for sharing your story. Because, like you're saying, you don't need to just share the wins. You know, these athletes do have a lot going on. Jill touched on it too. All the work that goes behind the scenes. You don't know about that. Richie Rude's a good example. He bailed out of this last World Cup because he just wasn't feeling good, and he posted about it. He mentioned that, and I was like, I'm glad he did that and didn't just, go dark, because that's the one thing as a sponsored athlete is I absolutely hate it when the athletes just go dark.
It's like kind of a fine line with what you want to share, though, too. I don't want people on the street just knowing too much about me. And, like, it happens. You see, like, when there's really big fans, like, even with motocross, like, I follow motocross and listen to podcasts, and then it's like, I feel like I know too much when you actually see them. It's kind of awkward. And I don't know. It's just, there's a lot you can share, but it kind of drains you a little bit. Like, you need to, like, make sure you do a good job at what you're doing first. Like, priority number one is to be, as an athlete, it's like there's all these splits in your time and what you have to do now that it's like, it's really challenging, and it is draining. And so it's like, what are you going to focus on? And you see there's a few World Cup athletes out there that I'm like, maybe they should do less social media because their results are slipping or whatever. But then, like, here Joe says, it's like, what's wrong? But I don't know. It just feels like an excuse sometimes. And so it's hard emotionally to share those things sometimes, and you don't need people sending you 500 messages and having to respond to all of them, because we do respond to all of them. It's nice that they care, obviously, is the main thing, but it's just a tough line to draw as to how much you want to share.
Yeah, I can imagine. Aaron, something you had talked about earlier was the difference when you're talking about Red Bull, the difference between a competition and a project athlete. Can you speak to that difference and why that's important?
Yeah. So we talked about it in these buckets of like performance athletes and project athletes. A project athlete would be Danny McCaskill, right? He does all kinds of cool projects, but doesn't need to really ever compete, because what he's doing is, an expression of what Red Bull wants to do, and it's an expression of what he wants to do, and it's this perfect partnership of those two, creating something that is, his brainchild, right? And there's like a billion ideas that are still, coming year after year, and Red Bull knows that, hey, if we put resources into this, we're going to get this result. It's pretty much cut and dry at this point. On the same side, like they want to be seen in this performance light, and so they want to have the best racers in the world, and something they really care about is finding the athletes on their way up so that they can be there. They love that moment when somebody shows up on a World Cup podium already Red Bull branded and no one else has heard of them. That's like the sweet spot for sure. And so those are really sort of the two lanes that Red Bull tries to cover. They try to find these really creative athletes that are doing stuff that no one else is really trying to do, and then they're trying to find future world champions. And those two buckets are really where they put all their energy. And then as athletes' careers continue to evolve, they try to find other ways to use those performance athletes to tie them into projects. They try to find and try to learn a little bit more about each one of them to sort of express their creative side, express their ideas in new ways, and really help them expand their footprint, really. When it comes to Jill, for example, like obviously raced and did all this amazing stuff, but then the art side is so cool. And I was like, okay, what can we do on the art side of things to just do even more, to really allow everybody to appreciate all that, you bring to the table. And so I think that's really a cool way that they can kind of tap into both lanes, where they can support somebody on the performance side, but they can also identify like, oh, that's interesting. You're into art. Let's find out what we can do with that and create a project from that. And it really kind of gives the brand multiple ways to tell the story of an athlete. And I think that's the most important thing. If you've just got this one lane of, we only do races and that's it, then how are you going to tell these other stories that might actually just resonate with more people, and more importantly, resonate with people outside of the bike world? Like, what you're talking about of working with the 3D printing, where it's like maybe people who haven't ridden bikes are getting exposed to biking now because of this 3D printing content. I think we all want mountain biking to continue growing and to continue getting bigger. And so I think it's on everybody to try to figure out what is something I could do that somebody from outside the sport would appreciate, and maybe get them to look in the window and see what mountain biking is all about. We think about all the people that came into the sport over the last couple of years. They started to see more and more of this stuff, and I think having this mindset of a project athlete is something that's only going to help mountain biking as we go forward.
Is that part of the opportunity too, if you could pair a performance athlete with a content creator to kind of get the mix of best of both worlds, to Jill's idea?
So, yeah, I think it absolutely is the best of both worlds, because like the cartoon that we did was sort of like the best riding paired with this like really cool creative output. If you can find a way to put those two things together, then that's the sweet spot, I think, for everybody, right? It's something that no one is really expecting. The project side of things is always different every single time a project comes out. It's not just a shred it. It's not just a result. It's always something creative, and there's always something to talk about. There's, plenty of marketing to go around when you have an idea that's being executed like that.
That same project though is like, so I was a Red Bull athlete for 20 years. Lucy was my manager, the best of all time. But anyway, like I think they saw that I like to draw and stuff, and we took my sketchbooks, and I was the first athlete to get to actually have artwork on a helmet. Like before that, it was strictly like the rhombus can thing. And so I got to have my drawings on it. It was really special to me, and I got to work with they hired me an illustrator and a design firm, and we created it together. And then I made a van out of it, like a van wrap, a massive billboard with my drawings. And then in the end, it was like, okay, let's bring my helmet artwork to life in animation. And it's like, Red Bull doesn't even market to kids or under 18. And I guess my drawings are like squirrels or woodland critters. It's kind of just an expression of being in the woods and riding bikes and stuff I like. But they didn't even, like, I don't know, it didn't launch on the main page. They just made it because we could make it, and I wanted to make it, and they just believed in it. And all the like, it was kind of like a female hero like that saves these critters from a storm, whatever. It's called Bandit Hill. But yeah, it wasn't really a Red Bull thing, but we made it, and it had like such good feedback, and so many kids watched it over and over and over. And it, it's a female biking hero, and there's like close-ups on my bike, and I got custom kit and custom, it was just kind of like a pairing of all of sponsors, and in the like most creative way I've seen. And it was like a once upon a time story. So it's like they just let you have budget to make your dreams come true. And it was, this guy pushed hard for it, and it was incredible, really.
I think one of the most important things for anybody that works at a brand, the most important thing to do is be a creative partner to all of the people that you work with, your athletes, ambassadors, creators, doesn't matter. Being a creative partner and listening to what they're talking about. And obviously there's the day-to-day of like branding or racing or whatever, but then also those extra side conversations, what comes out of that is usually where all the gold is. That's where the cool stuff comes from. And so being a creative partner and taking that extra time to really tap into what everybody's talking about and trying to figure out, like, is there something here? Because even the Bandit Hill idea, that was a long time coming. It was always a conversation that was sort of rolling, and then we finally found like the perfect place to put it. But it was always like, we got to do something with her art. She's such an amazing artist, blah, blah. And so, it was always like this ongoing thing. It wasn't just like, we got to do this thing. So I think being involved with the athletes that you work with and really understanding and becoming that sort of plus one, that 1% extra creative partner makes all the difference in the world.
Can I add one more thing? Yeah, like, so being able to have partners that will do that, like, so from there, like, Shimano's been like, I don't know, since 2010, my sponsor. It's like now we just, like, I'll make a custom shoe, I'll paint a shoe, and then Joe will make me a display, and we'll do it at Sea Otter, and we'll have rides and little spin-off things. So, like, choosing your partners wisely as an athlete and being of value in different, I think the creativity side is so much more fun, too. It's like, you get to explore, like, everyone's seen a race. Everyone, yeah, it comes and goes, but, like making something or finding the right value for a brand to, like, highlight what they're doing, and it's a partnership. So it's not like, hey, I need this, I want to do this. It's like, what can we do together? And that's really the most important thing, as if you're an athlete, that you can push to your sponsors and bring ideas and show value that way.
And I'll add that not every athlete is an artist. So like she kind of said, you got to find your niche. There's something, everyone's got their own creative things that's connected to the mountain biking. Sometimes mountain biking is just expressing personality. So in her case, art is a great tie-in, but there can be others too. So just don't just dismiss that. Well, I can't draw. So there's other ways that we can do fun collaborations. We're always looking for those things.
So it sounds like what we're hearing is obviously being an athlete is important, performance to some degree is important, but there's also a lot of ways to be creative and well, be creative in Jill's case. Jill, I'm curious, what are the downsides though? Are there impacts on all of these extra projects and content creation things that you have to do that affect your ability to ride?
Yeah, it's definitely like if your goal is to be a world champion, you cannot do these things. You only have so much energy, right? And however you split it. And this is true with people who work jobs and have kids or dogs or want to have free time or hang with their friends. There's just like there's only so much time, and how you divide it up is, where your focus or and it's a choice. Like, do what you want to do, whatever makes you the most happy. Probably put more energy into that, So, yeah, it's just I feel it for athletes and I feel it for brands. It's just you try to do your best and hope it's enough.
I will add that I would like it if the athletes that are coming to us asking for big money contracts would treat it like a business, and maybe they hire an agent and that can manage those sort of things, because really this isn't a bro deal, like especially when they're asking for money. It's a business relationship. We try and make it more than that, but it would be nice that the athletes are approaching sponsorships as a business proposition, and they're treating their racing as a business. And like she said, that if you're going for world championships, you are not doing a Bandit Hill cartoon. You're not doing these other things. And there is a fine line too, because I don't particularly love World Cup racers that hide away in between races and no one has access to them. So there's a balance that as a sponsor we try and find it. We don't ask too much of our athletes, and we kind of there's a little bit of help with social media. We can go, okay, I understand you need to stay focused. Can you at least do some posts to make sure that people know that there's a connection? Because there's a lot more to it, and we do understand at the highest level that you do have to be kind of selfish, and we understand that. But it is nice that you don't lose sight of part of the reason you're there is because you do have a sponsor. So it is worth pointing out that, and you treat it like a business, and it's really important, especially if you're asking for money. And then I'll also say is sponsorship's not for everyone. If you want to do what you want and not answer to these things, and you're like, oh, that's crap, I don't want to have to go do that, don't ask for sponsorship. It's that simple. Ride your bike and go race. That's fine. We're not forcing anyone to be sponsored. But if you want to be sponsored, there are certain expectations.
Content creators can sometimes reach a wider audience than athletes, and I guess that's a question for Jill and Joe. Is it the athlete's responsibility to reach a wider audience?
I mean, that's a little bit out of our control. It's like you show up as an athlete and it's like depends, like they had how the World Cup is streamed and like people are tuned into that. That's huge reach if you're doing good. So you just kind of got to pick the areas where you get the most return as an athlete. Like it's really tough as like an athlete today to figure out what actually is valuable, because it's really, really tough to be winning versus Jackson and Loic. And downhill. But I don't know if you can focus on the numbers or care that much. But, where these guys have to like look at the algorithms and like actually quantify it, it's inspiration comes in different ways. It's like, are you nice to someone? Did that have an impact? Like, you just try and be a good person. And like, I'm not there for like, hey, I got all these views and that really matters to me. I'd rather like meet a kid and like hand him a medal at an event and see him like, impacted in a way that's actually meaningful.
I would say it's not necessarily the athlete's responsibility, to go back to the original question. For the most part, if we're sponsoring a World Cup team, we're not expecting them to do other things that are outside of World Cup. When there's opportunities, then we love to embrace them and do it. But I wouldn't really put that on a racer. And that's one of the reasons why I like working with a lot of ambassadors like Thomas Vanderham or Matt Hunter. we we take the whole race results thing out of the equation, and I can come up with different ideas, and I can propose. I'm like, hey, we want to get some attention here. Do you have any ideas? And so yeah, athletes like Thomas, he's organized group rides or other things in connection with a movie premiere that he's a part of, and he pretty much just takes control, and he'll contact the local dealers, and he really will do a lot of those little things that add up. And I think that's one of the reasons why I do like ambassadors that don't have the restrictions of racing, and especially an ambassador that can get creative and organize an event, on Shimano's behalf. Because like I said, there's so many different categories that we sponsor. There's only a couple of us covering all of North America, and so we cannot be there for every single one of those things. So when we have athletes that have the ability to create and do things that are interesting and organize them, that brings actually a lot of value to us.
So I got a couple more questions, but we are going to open this up to the audience here in the last few minutes. So if you have any questions, write them down and get ready to ask them. But Aaron, I'm curious. So we talked about Red Bull, right? And Red Bull obviously is a really easy example to talk about. What for smaller brands or individual content creators who look at Red Bull and they're like, well, gosh, I can't jump out of space. What sort of practical advice can folks take from the Red Bull model or Red Bull examples?
Give the people what they want. The best part about all the stuff we're talking about right now is that there are so many ways to reach out to fans, other riders, however you want to categorize them. And everybody rides a different style. Everybody gets fired up. There are people that wake up super early to watch the live stream of the World Cup. There are people that are just like watching YouTube video after YouTube video. There are people that are, out there just riding and like there's so many different ways to connect and bring value to our community. And I think, when it comes to the brand specific perspective of that, there also are creators or athletes that match up with each one of those groups of people. And so for a small brand, you don't have to do the world's biggest project, but do something that matters to at least one group of people and focus in on just delivering that, and start there and get that right, and then do it again and again. Red Bull doesn't just do the same thing over and over and over in every single category. Sure, Rampage comes back every year, hopefully. But ultimately, if you look at Red Bull athlete projects, it's not the same project every year. They try to put a different athlete on, or they try to come up with a new idea, or they try to do something totally different. And, not everything works. Some stuff is messy. Some stuff totally doesn't hit, And it's just they continue to work with different athletes, different creators, try different concepts, try different things. The amount of attempts that they have had, the amount of shots on goal that Red Bull has had across like every sport, there's stuff that they've been involved in that you've never even heard of. It's not just mountain biking and skateboarding and whatever. Like, they do some really weird stuff. So I think like it's really about deciding who you want to talk to, finding the right people that can get that message across, whether it's athlete, creator, or somewhere in between, and just double down on that and get it right. And then take everything that you learned there and reapply it to the next thing. You don't have to throw somebody out of space, but you could do something that really meant something to one person. And I think as a creator, that's one of the things that, we're always talking about is like, you're not trying to talk to 100,000 people. You're trying to talk to one person. And if you can land something with that one person, it probably will resonate with 100,000 other people. And so I think from the brand perspective, it's the same thing. Find that person that you're trying to speak to and communicate to them either directly or with the help of somebody that either races, creates content, or somewhere in between.
Yeah, I was just thinking, one of the good things about working in this space is if you make something that's good, a lot of people see it. If you make something that's bad, it usually doesn't get a lot of traction, and so you can kind of push it under the rug and never talk about it again.
Fair enough. You just hide all your mistakes. Joe, does it keep you up at night knowing that you can't define ROI for any of these things we're talking about, or is that of concern to you?
No, I do think about it all the time. I mean, even from our event planning and our booth that we have here at the Tune Up Festival, is it inviting? Is it resonating with people? Yeah, I sweat all those details, and I think about the athletes, and then when it comes up time to renew, I'm like, gosh, did I do it? Did I give them enough direction? Did I tell them what I wanted? Is it fair for me to maybe decide maybe we don't want to continue, but I need to make sure I gave proper guidance. So and we're a Japanese owned company, and so we're far away from each other. So they're not at every event, so they have to trust us, and I have to feel good about when I propose these are the athletes that I'm backing, or these are the events I want to attend. I got to really make sure that it checks a lot of boxes, and I want to. I like to avoid trying to explain too much. I kind of want it easy, but sometimes I have to dig my heels in, and I'm like, I really believe in this person, and they're like, we've never heard of them, or and I have to explain a little bit, and then they approve the contract, and then I'm like, man, I hope they deliver. I hope they come through with all the things that I wanted, and for the most part, if they make it to that point to where they get that proposal and it goes to Japan and they approve it, there's very few riders that we discontinue relationships with. So, I don't know exactly what that attests to. If maybe we're fairly selective, but but we do try and constant communication, and like I have someone who works under me, Steve Blick, and he's like that first wave, and so he's working hard to communicate with the athletes and give direction. And so then in my mind, I'm like, did I tell Steve the right information to communicate with the athletes? So yeah, I take it very serious, and I think about all the little details.
Awesome. We have any questions? If not, I'll just keep rolling.
What's been a recent like switch up in the marketing space that had you adjusting how you approach athletes or content creators, and then what's something that you anticipate happening in the future that you're getting ready for?
I can say as social media started becoming a thing, we're like, oh gosh, we finally got some quantitative numbers that we can look at. But then we quickly realized that those numbers don't actually translate to ROI, and they're they're not really great. And so I started going away from that, but we're losing video. We don't have the video content, and when video content does come online, like Pink Bike and things like that, there's some amazing content that's being created, and so much effort and money goes into it. But unfortunately, those videos are gone in a couple days, and sort of forgotten. Like there's some insane Brett Reeder videos out there, and Brandon Semenuk, even though he's not a Shimano athlete, insane videos out there, and they're just kind of forgotten. And so is what I've kind of been feeling lately is we keep losing magazines. Luckily, we still have Free Hub out there, but back in the day, we had magazines everywhere, and a magazine cover and coverage in the magazine meant everything. Now you get some video content, and it's like, well, that was cool, it's gone. So unfortunately, kind of, we are looking at the numbers again. We are paying attention to what's going on the social media, and it's not everything. So just to be 100% clear, numbers are not everything, but we are paying attention to it a lot more. And the future, I honestly, none of us, we're really not sure. We don't know. We just go back to authentic, content, authentic athletes, things like that. But AI's coming in, and you can't trust everything you're seeing online anyways, and we don't know. We're constantly going around in circles. So to be totally transparent, we're not sure.
I think one other thing to add is when you're in this space too, not everybody is as switched on as Joe. Not everybody is thinking through this kind of stuff, and so he understands how this works. But not every partner that you're talking to is going to have the same. They're going to, what is the ROI of this? We want you to do an affiliate thing. We want this and this. And you have to sort of stand your ground in a lot of cases to say, like, that's not going to get the information that you think you're going to get. And or even worse, it's going to make this partnership not look as good as it actually has been or effective as it has been. The affiliate thing's a complete rabbit hole to go down. But I think the education that we have to all kind of collectively do to like bring everybody up to that level of understanding. Like I said, not everybody understands the way that Joe does. And so I think one of the hardest things for both the athlete and creators roles is sort of this ongoing education of, you know, we've seen best practices, we've also seen things go sideways, and we have to do our best to not only try to put these projects together and these deals together, but we also have to be educating along the way, which is a lot of heavy lifting. And unfortunately, not everybody gets it.
And then just to add in with the ROI stuff a little bit, well, I always tell brands that I'm working with is short form video is great for general brand awareness and, you know, familiarity and a good feeling. And then long form YouTube content is great for more direct sales and maybe a bit more measurable ROI, but also more importantly, a more permanent home for high lift content, stuff that's evergreen and will be seen years later. Is better in a long format video on someone's TV or someone's desktop rather than just scrolling through on a phone.
I think we got time for one more question.
On that level of what you guys are talking about and this world that we live in that's, you know, 5 to 10 second attention span for everything, right? Like that seems to be, that's just the world that it is now. So on that perspective of what you guys are talking about, and I like what Joe said about how once something's been seen, like it's gone, right? It's nobody really goes back and like is like, oh, there's that video that I watched 2 months ago that's incredible. Like that's very rare that happens. So in this world of the 10-second attention span, and then the next swipe, and what's the latest greatest, and swipe again, it's probably a general question for all you guys, but like, do you think that's it? It is what it is. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel of where we do get to a space where, like Joe was talking about, where there was a magazine and you've always got that to go back on, it sits on your coffee table, or video that came out that's actual video that you have in your collection? Are we ever maybe going to get somewhere close to that? Or is it 10-second attention span forever?
Yeah, I feel like my job is to stretch the attention span. To be, you know, if it's a good video, it could be a minute long, it could be 10 minutes long. If you have your storytelling structure right and you have things planned out properly, people will stick around and watch. And it's kind of my job to make sure that happens. If people are, you know, swiping away after 10 seconds and they never think about what I've made again, then I'm just not doing a good job.
Yeah, I would say actually the whole reason why I do short form content is to hook people in to watch the long form content that I'm making. I'll give you one tip, but I want you to come and get the whole lesson. Or I'll show you this one place we went, but I want you to come watch the whole thing in depth. And so a lot of the whole purpose of that short form is specifically to introduce people to something that maybe they haven't seen before or they haven't experienced before. They're going to, you know, come through. And that's, yeah, it's almost like a hook to bring people deeper into the sport or the content or anything like that. So I hope that there's hope.
Well, I don't know that we answered the question, but I think we at least attempted it. We might need to do a follow-up conversation at some point to try and lock down some details. But I think this has been a really insightful conversation, hearing from all the different perspectives represented here. If you have time, maybe, you know, grab these guys' ears before they have to leave today. But let's give it a round of applause for Joe, Jill, Aaron, and Brendan. Thank you, and thanks for tuning in.